Good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the daily news analysis of the NEXT IAS. Today is the 11th June 2025. So the topics which we are going to cover today are: first is regarding the United Nations Population Fund's report on the state of the world population, important from the GS1 society, population and associated issues perspective. Second, the news about the Etalin hydropower project in the Arunachal Pradesh, important from GS3 environmental conservation and pollution perspective. Third is regarding the World Bank's report on the GDP forecast for India in 2025-26. Next is about the Europe, the old continent rising, which discusses about the strategic importance of the European Union under the changing geopolitical conditions for India. And the last one is about the new normal after the post Operation Sindoor, which discusses about the strategic insights from this Operation Sindoor as well as the lessons India should take in the future warfare after this. So let's start. So next is about the Europe, old continent rising. Basically, in recently our External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar has decided to visit the Europe in this week, and also our Prime Minister Modi ji has been travelling to Canada for participation in the G7 summit, followed by the trips to Croatia and Cyprus. So this topic is important from the perspective of GS2, that is international relations, bilateral, regional, global groupings and agreements involving India. Basically, this article highlights the strategic significance of European Union for India, as well as what are the changing geopolitical realities of the West as well as Europe, and how India can harness these changes for its own benefits. So let's start with the first. Let's start with the introduction. Basically, our External Affairs Minister is visiting Europe to strengthen the strategic ties with European Union, France, Belgium, and Prime Minister visiting G7 summit in Canada. So what are the changing global dynamics or geopolitical realities that has been discussed in this article? The first is about the Europe's changing strategic or geopolitical role. Basically, in the conflict between the major powers like US, Russia, China, Europe is emerging as a swing state. Second thing, Europe, because of the inward looking or unpredictable Trump policies, Europe has been pushing for the strategic autonomy, which is also aligning with the India's worldview. Basically, earlier whatever the support or security umbrella that was given by the United States to the entire Europe, because of the unpredictable policies of the Trump, Europe itself is looking for the developing its own security apparatus or strengthening its security apparatus in terms of NATO or other security alliances. So this is the reason it is looking for the strategic autonomy. So in case of recent G7 summit, basically G7 is the group of Western democracies, industrialized democracies, and this G7 basically grouping has been facing internal divisions because of the defiant Trump. Second, Canada, which is hosting the this particular G7 summit after 7 years, has seeking diversified global partnership in the context of its recent tensions with America and Trump. So what are the impact of the Trump's presidency on the West? This article also discusses. First of all, Trump is very dismissive about NATO, Five Eyes Alliance and its allies' role in the collective security. Basically, Trump calls its European allies or other Western allies as a free riders because he wants to say that they are enjoying the security umbrella given by the United States, but at the same time not paying enough for the collective security in NATO. Second thing is about Trump's reluctance to defend the Ukrainian sovereignty and its eagerness to talk or deal with the Vladimir Putin. This has created suspicion in the mind of European allies of the America. Third thing is about Trump's tendency to promote bilateral trade deals or other deals rather than multilateralism, creating suspicion in the mind of European allies. Then next is about the Canada's strategic shift. Basically, Trump, after assuming presidency has called for making Canada as a 51st state of the America, which has created a lot of tensions between the two states. So, in context of that, Canada is looking for its strategic shift in terms of courting India as well as Europe to reduce its security dependence on the US. Second thing, Canada is also proactively negotiating defense agreement with the European Union. Third, it is advocating the Readiness 2030 and critical mineral strategy along with European Union. It must be mentioned here that Canada, Australia, China are among the are three major nations which host a lot of critical minerals on a large scale. Then this article also highlights what are the present European power realignments in context of inward looking America and defiant Trump, who is not giving enough adequate attention to the NATO. The first, regarding the United Kingdom or England, basically post Brexit, United Kingdom or England has signed a UK EU Defence Pact recently. Second, in terms of Germany, Germany has initiated constitutional reforms that will enable German government for higher defense spending. Also, German government is focusing on NATO, strengthening of NATO, as well as focusing on European strategic autonomy to reduce its dependence, security dependence on the United States. Third is regarding the France step. Basically, France, being the nuclear power country, is providing extension of its nuclear umbrella to the European partners, as well as looking for expansion of the Europe defense capabilities in terms of collective security by strengthening of the NATO. Poland is also seen as a rising security leader in Europe in terms of being the neighbor of Ukraine that has been facing Russian aggression. Then Weimar Triangle, basically it is a collective term for the France, Germany and Poland together, which is emerging as a Central European power bloc. Next is about UK, France and Germany. They have intensified their security collaboration efforts in the context of Russian aggression on the Ukraine. Now, what are the strategic initiatives taken by these European powers individually as well as collectively outside Europe? The first of all, Europe plus Japan push for Europe plus Japan strategy. They are pushing for more security presence in the Indo-Pacific in terms of aggressive China. Second, European Union is strengthening ties with the ASEAN, Australia, India, Japan and South Korea. These initiatives by Europe are driven by the concerns over China's assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific, especially in the Pacific South China Sea. So, the last part of this article discusses about the India-Europe strategic convergence. It means that how India and Europe or European Union can be of each other's help in the context of changing geopolitical realities in present times. First of all, this particular India-Europe relationship has been moving to the center of the global power alignments. Second thing, India-Europe free trade agreement is closer to realization in recent times. Third, India Middle East Europe economic corridor, it will strengthen the Eurasian connectivity. Then next is about India EU Trade and Technology Council, which collaborates on the various emerging technologies like AI, space, quantum technologies, green technologies. And the last is about the Europe's rearm plan. Basically, this is more than 800 billion euro initiative which Europe plans to spend, and this will lead to the opening of various defense co-development opportunities with India and transition from buyer-seller to the defense partnership. So, basically to conclude, India and Europe are collaboratively promoting multipolar global order to counterbalance the growing bipolarity that is led by the US and China. Their partnership gains importance as the US is becoming increasingly inward looking and unpredictable under the President Trump. So, this is the practice question. Europe is no longer a peripheral actor but a strategic partner in the India's foreign policy calculus. discuss in the context of recent diplomatic engagements and emerging multipolar world order. Please write answer of this question. The first is about the United Nations Population Fund's report about the India's population, that is world state of the world population, the real fertility crisis. Basically, this report highlights India's current population and estimate it at around 146.39 crore, that is 1.46 billion as of April 2025. And as per this report, within next 40 years, India's population will peak at around 170 crore and then it will start decline. As of now, India is most populous nation on the planet, and also the China remains to be the second populous nation with 141 crore population. So, the main theme of this report is about the fertility crisis the globe has been facing. Basically, as per this report, the total fertility rate in India has been declined to the 1.9, which is the below replacement level of 2.1. This report highlights the prevalence of lack of reproductive autonomy among the Indians as well as the couples of all over the world. In case of India, it highlights that about 1 in 3 adult Indians, that is 36% of the Indian adults face unintended pregnancies, while 30% experience unfulfilled desire for having more or fewer children, and 23% of adult Indian face both of them, that is unintended pregnancies as well as the unfulfilled desire for having one more or fewer children. Secondly, it emphasizes upon the condition of women, which says that women face significant barriers in making free and informed decisions about their reproductive choices or lives, and it also highlights the significant disparities that exist among the different regions and states. For example, in case of Meghalaya, the total fertility rates happen to be the 2.9. In case of Kerala, it is 0.7. So, there is a lot of difference between the two states of the India. Okay. Then, as per this report, vast number of people are unable to create the families which they want, and this issue is about lack of choice, not desire, not lack of desire, basically, which leads to the major consequences for the individual as well as the families. And as per this report, this lack of choice in case of reproductive autonomy or reproductive agency is the real fertility crisis that world as well as the India has been facing, and it is not the underpopulation or overpopulation. So, the report also highlights the prevalence of high fertility and low fertility duality that has been coexisting in India among the different regions or different social groups or different economic classes in India. This duality of the fertility, that is high fertility as well as the low fertility, is the result of certain factors like economic opportunities, access to the healthcare, education levels, prevailing gender and social norms. Basically, in states like Bihar, the total fertility rate is about 3, in Meghalaya it is 2.9, in Uttar Pradesh it is 2.7, and as per this report, the fertility rates of these 3 states are well above the replacement level. Then this particular report also discusses the barriers that are present to the reproductive autonomy in global as well as the Indian context. In case of global scenario, it says that 1 in 5 people expect not to have number of children that they desire, means they are having less children which they actually desire, and major barrier for having less number of children includes foremost is about the prohibitive cost of the parenthood, job insecurity, housing constraints, concerns over the state of the world, lack of suitable partner, etc. In case of India, major barriers to the reproductive autonomy includes financial limitations 40%, which is the most important factor, housing constraints 22%, job insecurity 21%. Other barriers include poor general well-being, lack of reliable child care, infertility issues among the couples, limited access to the pregnancy care, health issues, partner family pressure, anxieties about the future, uncertainties or financial stabilities. So, these are the major barriers to the reproductive autonomy that Indian couples as well as the global couples are facing. Next, this report highlights the significant number of youth population in case of India, as well as the opportunities as well as the challenges it brings along with it. So, in case of India, working age population, that is population between 15 to 64 years is 68%, which is more than 2/3 population. Elderly population in case of India, that is 65 plus population, is currently 7%, but it is likely to increase in upcoming decades. And also this report highlights the imperative necessity for India as well as the Indian government to develop the geriatric healthcare apparatus on district as well as the lower levels. Life expectancy in case of India in 2025 is 71 year for men and 74 year for women. So, the report also highlights what are the implications of this huge population as well as this demographic dividend which India hosts. The first and foremost finding is about India being the most populous country as well as with a huge demographic dividend, a critical demographic marker that influence global geopolitics, economy and development priorities. This means that India being the most populous country and one of the largest economy of the world, India is a critical demographic marker influencing global geopolitics. Then TFR below the replacement level, it signals the demographic transition. As per this report, TFR is 1.9 and which is below 2.1, which is required for the replacement level fertility, and this represents demographic transition in case of India. Third, high working age population, that is 68% population in India is working age, which represents a strategic opportunity for India to harness its abundant human capital for economic growth, innovation as well as productivity. Significant youth population, 26% population aged between 10 to 24, demands focused investment in education, skill training, employment to build competitive and inclusive workforce. Then rising share of the aging population. In case of India, currently 65% population, 7% population is above the 65 years, which is a aging population, and in that case, report highlights the necessity of proactive planning in case of geriatric healthcare, social security apparatus, elder care infrastructure. Then at last, report highlights the policy alignment and validation. The findings align with India's internal demographic projections, providing global validation and credibility to the India's planning models and facilitating better policy coherence. So what are the recommendations given by the report to India? The first and foremost is about the development of the supportive ecosystem. The report necessitates the need for the development of the supportive ecosystem in terms of having paid family leave, affordable fertility care, supportive partners to help individuals achieve their reproductive goals. Then necessity of policy shift, move away from the fear over declining fertility and focus on addressing the unmet reproductive desires. Third is about the giving reproductive autonomy or agency. The report highlights the necessity of promoting freedom of choice in decision related to the sex, contraception and family planning. To address infertility issue among the couple, basically in urban areas, report include infertility treatment under public health insurance schemes in case of India as well as the globe. In case of India, there are 27.5 million couples which face some or other kind of infertility issues, but at the same time, the healthcare services with reference to this infertility are very limited as well as confined to the urban areas and very expensive in nature. Also, the report highlights the need of removing social stigma in case of women, basically in case of such infertility related issues that they have to face on every day. Then demographic resilience. Basically, this report urges Indian government to build a society that can adapt to the population changes while preserving the reproductive rights as well as the human dignity. Key terms, basically two key terms must be discussed here. First is about the total fertility rate. This total fertility rate measures the number of children woman is expected to have throughout their reproductive age. According to the latest sample registration system of 2021, the total fertility rate in India was 2.0, that is 2, and in case of replacement level TFR and total fertility rate, it is the rate needed for each generation to replace the previous generation's population. So, in case of India, it is 2.1. So, this is the practice question. The State of World Population Report is published by. Kindly solve this question. Next news is about the World Bank GDP growth rate forecast for India. So, what is the context or backdrop? World Bank has recently released a World Economic Prospects report. So, what are the findings of this particular report? As per this particular report, in financial year 2025-2026, projected GDP growth for India is 6.3%. Next, India is fastest growing large economies. But actually, the same World Bank has given GDP growth rate of 6.7% in January 2025 projection, but it has been reduced by 0.4 percentage point currently. Second, in case of financial year 2027, this rate is likely to cut by 20 basis point to 6.5%. Then, in case of financial year 28, India GDP growth rate is likely to be 6.7%, and this will increase because of the robust service sector growth as well as the export growth. In case of India, RBI has projected growth rate of 6.5% for the financial year 2025-26, and Indian government, basically Ministry of Finance, estimate is about between 6.3 to 6.8%. So, these are the various GDP growth projection in case of Indian economy in 2025-2026. So, in case of Indian economy, this particular report highlights various challenges. For example, in case of India, there has been a slowing investment growth. Investment growth has been slowing down because of the various factors like global policy uncertainty, weak external demands from the key trading partners of the India, leading to the decline in the trade or export, rising trade barriers because of the inward looking America. Exports are hit because of the sluggish demand from the key trading partners and rising trade barriers. So, in case of inflation and monetary policy, it says that retail inflation in financial year 2026 projected to be the 3.7%. RBI repo rate, in case of India, RBI repo rate in 2025, it has been cut by 100 basis points in 2025. Current repo rate is 5.5%, and this particular repo rate cut has been initiated to boost domestic private consumption and investment. This particular report highlights India's public debt and statistics as well as the fiscal policy needed. As per this particular report, in case of India, public debt to GDP ratio is estimated to be the 56.1%, and Indian government's target to achieve it to be a 50% by the financial year 2031. So, what are the drivers of debt reduction as per this report? Growing tax revenues and declining current expenditure or revenue expenditures. Then this particular report also give information about the global economic prospects at global level. So, first of all, in case of financial year 2025, global GDP growth happened to be 2.3%, down from 2.7% in January forecast. Then global trade tensions leading to the lower forecast of the global trade prospects. In case of 2026, the global GDP growth rate is expected to be the 2.4%, and in 2027 2.6%. Trade conflicts basically between US and China in terms of increasing tariffs as well as export controls leading to the trade conflicts, and it is ultimately hampering the world's GDP growth. If trade barriers, it also highlights that if the trade barriers are reduced by half, global growth would be 0.2% higher in 2025-26. So, these are certain statistics about the global economy forecast by the World Bank report. So, this particular report also give information about the developing worlds, changing dynamics, growth dynamics within the developing economies in last 3 decades. So, basically as per this report, developing world outside the Asia, means apart from the Asian economies, whatever the developing economies are there in other continents, it says that this developing world is turning into development free zones. That is, there has been a consistent decline in the growth rates of the developing nations in last 3 decades. For example, in 2000s it was 6%, in 2010s it was 5%, and 2020 onwards it is less than 4%. In case of global trade, there has been a consistent decline. For example, it was in 2000 it was 5%, in 2010 decade it was 4.5%, and in case of 2020s it is less than 3%. So, such is the decline in the growth of the global trade. So, this is the practice question with reference to the recent developments in the India's economic and monetary policy. Consider the following statements. Please solve this question. Next topic of discussion is about the Etalin Hydel Project in the Arunachal Pradesh. Basically, Environment Ministry recently gave Environment Ministry's Forest Advisory Committee recently granted in principle forest clearance for 3000 megawatt Etalin Hydel project in Arunachal Pradesh. This topic is of relevance from the perspective of GS3 infrastructure, clean energy generation as well as the environmental impact assessment. So, let us go into the details of this Etalin hydropower project, hydroelectric project. Basically, it is situated in the Dibang Valley of the Arunachal Pradesh. This is the actual location of this Etalin Hydel power project. This is 3097 megawatt project, which makes it one of the largest, India's one of the largest proposed hydropower projects. Basically, this project comprises 2 run of the river schemes. Run of the river means there is no water storage element involved, and it involves building of concrete gravity dams on the Dri and Tangon rivers, which are happen to be the tributaries of the Dibang river. So, it lies in the highly biodiverse Himalayan region, recognized as a global biodiversity hotspot, and this particular region is home to the Idu-Mishimi tribal community, which is indigenous to the Arunachal Pradesh. So, what are the project overview or important statistics related to this particular project, and what are the likely impact of this project? For example, forest land, more than 1100 hectares of forest land is likely to be diverted, and most of these are community forest owned by the tribal communities. Second, the project is likely to cause felling of 2.78 lakh trees. Third is regarding the wildlife habitat. This particular site of the project is home to the tigers, leopards, snow leopards, black bears, musk deer, Mishmi takin, and more than 680 bird species. Then resistance, the people's resistance to this particular project. The indigenous Idu-Mishimi community has been opposing this project because of the ecological concerns. Now, let us go into the clearance. Basically, this clearance, in principle forest clearance is granted in May 2025, and this particular clearance has a matter of contention or a controversy because of the procedural lapses happened in this particular process of clearance. The first of all, overlooking of the past concerns. Basically, this forest advisory committee has given in principle approval based on the old studies, also ignored its own prior recommendations given in the past. So, this particular clearance is based on the old studies. Second thing, in Forest Advisory Committee in December 2022 has clearly rejected this project. The reason given by this the same Forest Advisory Committee was the necessity to review the facts about tree felling as well as the biodiversity and wildlife protection concern arising out of this project. Then in 2017, the FAC had earlier called for multi-seasonal biodiversity study, this particular Forest Advisory Committee, but instead of that, Environment Ministry went ahead with the wildlife conservation plan by the Wildlife Institution of India. The next concern is about there were no fresh studies indicated or given. Second, next point is about the controversies regarding this wildlife conservation plan curated by the Wildlife Institution of India. Basically, the wildlife conservation plan was conducted only for 4 months. This was supposed to be the multi-seasonal study or multi-seasonal biodiversity study, but it was completed in merely 4 months in 2019. Second, this particular study was criticized by multiple independent scientists. The reason because of the many errors in this study. For example, this particular conservation plan study has listed non-native species like African bat being the inhabitant of this particular region. So, this particular the process of granting in principle approval has marred in multiple controversies. So, this is the practice question. With reference to the Etalin hydroelectric project, consider the following statement. Kindly solve this question. The next article is about new normal post Operation Sindoor. Basically, 1 month has completed of Operation Sindoor. So, this article discusses broader strategic insights or lessons that India must think about to be successful in the future conflicts that are becoming increasingly lethal as well as the unpredictable. So, let us go into it. Basically, as this particular Operation Sindoor has completed 1 month, we need to shift our focus from tactical or short term outcomes like which country has destroyed more targets or whose weapon performance was better, to the broader strategic lessons. So, tactical analysis is although useful for improving the military capabilities in the short term, the real insight or real value lies in understanding the strategic insights that can guide India's preparedness as well as the response in future Indo-Pakistan crisis. So, what is the new normal it talks about? First is about the strategic and political shifts. The first among this is the doctrinal evolution or doctrinal shift in case of India. Basically, this particular heavy or massive response by Indian Air Force as well as the army gives India's shift towards the doctrine of punitive military action in response to the major terror attacks by the Pakistan, which targeted both terrorist as well as the Pakistan's military assets. As per certain reports, more than 20% infrastructure of the Pakistan Air Force or airstrips has been destroyed in this Operation Sindoor. Second, no distinction policy. Basically, our Prime Minister in address to the nation has clearly said that India will no longer separate terrorists from their state sponsors like ISI as well as the Pakistan military, and this particular stance has signaled that there will be a heavy consequences for the Pakistan military in case of such a terrorist attack. Then cost imposition strategy. Basically, cost imposition has become a fundamental part of the India's counter-terrorism strategy post 2016. In surgical strike post Uri attack or in case of Balakot strikes in 2019. Next insight is about the nuclear deterrence. This article highlights that earlier Pakistan used to give nuclear posture every other day by citing the presence of tactical nuclear weapons. But this our response in terms of Operation Sindoor highlights that Pakistan's nuclear posturing or threat is no longer sufficient to deter India from employing the calibrated military force. Second, back channel nuclear signal. Basically, this article also highlights that although there was no explicit nuclear signaling from Pakistan in Operation Sindoor, but at the same time Pakistan possibly have invoked its nuclear signaling to the US, so that US was forced or US was compelled to mediate in between India and Pakistan conflict. So, and which resulted in the ceasefire between the two nations. Then future resilience, reliance on the deterrence. Basically, this particular article also highlights that Pakistan, owing to its limited conventional warfare capabilities, may increasingly rely on nuclear deterrent to limit India's conventional military options. Since Pakistan's military strength is very limited vis-a-vis India, so it will increasingly rely on its nuclear power to posture India to in front of India. So, this article also highlights new dimension of information warfare as well as the narrative control during as well as the after the conflict. Basically, this narrative dominance over material outcomes. Victory is increasingly measured by control over the narrative rather than the material losses. Basically, after the ceasefire, both countries have claimed victories, and also both countries have sent delegations across the world to present own side of the version of warfare to the entire world or prominent countries of the world. So, this article again highlights the significance of dominance of narrative in the global context. Second, selective messaging. Basically, it emphasizes specific success indicators, helps in shaping the positive domestic perception. This means that while the military conflict was going on during the Operation Sindoor, there was a selective messaging given by the Pakistan military, so that it will shape a positive domestic perception regarding their capabilities. Next is about the technology driven conflict. Basically, this article highlights the rise of high-tech warfare like drones, missiles, standoff precision weapons are now favored weapons of war. The recent clash has dubbed by some analysts that it was South Asia's first drone war. Pakistan has significantly used Turkey origin as well as the China origin drones to attack India. Basically, significant damage was caused to the Pakistan's military infrastructure by BrahMos missiles as well as the air-launched Scalp and Hammer munitions. Also, Indian military has initiated purchase of kamikaze drones, loitering munitions, missiles as well as the counter drone systems in the context of overwhelming use of the drones by Pakistan. So, what is the future conflict outlook as per this particular article? The first, technology advanced technologically warfare. So, article suggests that future India-Pakistan conflicts will be faster, lethal, more lethal and driven by advanced technologies. Second, the era of drone warfare. It highlights that AI-enabled drone swarms could be used to overwhelm defense and target military infrastructure, as Pakistan has done in the during Operation Sindoor. Mastering of drone warfare as well as the counter drone measures is the strategic necessity of the time. Then use of precision weapons. Basically, widespread use of precision guided munitions will increase the speed as well as the lethality of the strikes. Then this conflict is not just on the war field, but it is in the realm of digital as well as the cyber. So, the conflict may extend beyond the conventional geographical borders, including digital as well as the cyber domains. Next is about the information warfare. Dominating the narrative from the outset will be key to present the positive perception of India to the world, and managing the fake news as well as the disinformation campaign that has been used by the Pakistan. Then next is about the cyber threats, increased use of cyber attacks on the critical infrastructure. So, what is the importance or necessity of strategic communication? India must develop strong information warfare strategy. Next is about the nuclear dimension. Pakistan, as per this article, Pakistan could in future conflict will start nuclear signaling very early to the international community, so that international mediation will come as soon as possible, which will prevent India from proving its conventional military superiority vis-a-vis Pakistan. So it will be in a strategic benefit to the Pakistan to go for nuclear signaling, so that it can hide its military incapabilities and failure against Indian military. Second is the possibility of retaliation. The article highlights that despite the significant setbacks to its military infrastructure, Pakistan still retains enough military capability to retaliate swiftly if India conducts future strikes. The next is about the diplomatic posturing shift and necessity of the shifting to proactive diplomacy. Basically, to build international consensus on the Pakistan's role in sponsoring terrorism in India as well as the South Asia, India must go for proactive diplomacy all over the world. So ultimately, to conclude, Operation Sindoor signals a new phase in India's strategy, one that is assertive, technologically prepared and diplomatically aware. So strategic preparation, not just the tactical readiness, will define the India's success in future conflicts with Pakistan. So next is about the practice question. India's counter-terrorism doctrine is moving away from defensive stance to a proactive deterrence-oriented strategy. Discuss this shift in the context of Operation Sindoor and its implications for the national security. Please write the answer of this question. This is all for today. Thank you.